Sometimes the people that you see out there in the world that are these amazing leaders that have changed the world is because they come from a place of so much pain and so much suffering that they've transformed their pain into purpose.
Welcome to fabulous Miami Beach. This is the first in a brand new series, a Bikecast for Ride for Unity. And I have the most amazing guest to take with me on a cycle up Ocean Drive. I can't wait for this. Representing one of the most incredible people I've met of recent times. She's the acclaimed author of The Unexpected Gift of Trauma, Dr. Edith Shiro.
We're ready to go.
Tour de France, here we come.
Tour de France and us.
Let's go for a cycle?
Let's go.
All right, let's go. All right.
All right.
Here we go. How much fun is this? Wow, I haven't ridden a bike like this for a while.
It's an easy bike, right?
Yeah, this is a nice stroll up Ocean Drive. How amazing is this? This is beautiful.
We're so lucky.
Thank you so much for coming on this crazy little idea of mine.
Thank you so much for stretching my comfort zone.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? That's what we're here to do.
I'm growing every minute with this experience.
The comfort zone is the evil place. We don't want to stay there. So here we are, Ocean Drive. This is fabulous. The sun's just come up. And there's a bit of music here. There's people with a beatbox behind us. Look at that. Morning.
Mode of transportation in Miami is scooter with music.
It sounds like a must.
Yeah. Skateboard or scooter.
So we're in Miami. When did you get to Miami?
So I came to Miami from New York 15 years ago into what I thought was going to be a very easy transition, and it ended up being a big culture shock.
Oh, wow.
Because the difference back then between the lifestyle in New York and Miami was very, very big. And
what brought you here in the first place? What was the trigger?
So Miami, as we say, is the closest Latin American city to the United States.
No kidding. No, you know, everyone's speaking to me in Spanish here ever since I came.
Yes.
I'm like, do I really look Latino? I don't know.
You do.
Yeah.
You definitely
Well,
do.
here I do.
Yes, here you fit in perfectly. And to me, they speak in English because they think I'm a...
So funny.
I'm a gringa. And Miami is a very special place for the Latin Jewish community. And a lot of the Jews from all parts of Latin America, Argentina, Venezuela, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, they have moved to Miami as a safe space for building community. And I say specifically Jewish because throughout the years that has been the case for the Jews and also for the Latinos, for the population of Latin America. Miami has been one of the options because it's so close to different countries in Latin America, and also because it's been so welcoming and so open and so easy to adjust here. You know, the mix of cultures, the Spanish, the English, the different accents are so available here.
So 15 years here in Miami, and what does it mean to you now? I mean, how much of this is your home? Do you still think about Venezuela as a home, or is this it now?
You know, there's so much that has happened since I left Venezuela more than 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's one of the really important parts of who I am, my identity of, living in different cultures, countries, places that has allowed me to feel like a sense of belonging in different parts. I haven't been in Venezuela in 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because of dictatorship that is going on.
Do you still have family there?
I have family and friends, yes, I still do. One of the things that happens here in Miami is that there's such closeness to the culture that in a way Venezuela has come to me here.
Wow.
Because
that's
all the
beautiful.
delicious restaurants, food, music, dance, art, friends and family have come to Miami. I mean, for the sad reasons of having to escape the country, and for the fortune of creating a new community here in Miami and in other parts of the world. And Miami has become such a different city lately in the last few years. So I've been so fortunate to see the evolution of this place.
One of the things I think that really symbolizes Miami, and we're just off the back of an important week for this city with Art Basel.
My favorite city in the year.
So, you know, and your favorite. I mean, I suffered from the traffic all the time. I mean, I'm not a huge art aficionado. I tried to pretend. I thought maybe I'll go to one of these. I don't know. I didn't want to kid myself. But tell me what art means for you, because I know it's a big part of your soul.
Yes. So you know, when I first moved to Miami 15 years ago, I moved very close to the week of Art Basel, Miami. It's 1 week in which everybody in the world that cares about art, that knows about art, that is an art collector, an art curator, an artist, comes to Miami. And Miami becomes the hub of creativity and beauty, and it's really, really, really exciting to see that. I've been very connected to art and music since I was very little, because of my family that has really, I've had the fortune of having parents and grandparents who care about that a lot and have taught me a lot. And also, I think the work that I do as a clinical psychologist cannot be done without the complementary part of art and music and movement and dance.
That's interesting.
You know?
So you use that in your, because we're going to touch on this, of course, as well, your work as a clinical therapist. Is that correct to say it that way?
Yes, a clinical psychologist.
And your use of art and music in that is, I think that's fascinating. Tell me a little bit more about that. Do your patients accept that as a method?
It's not necessarily a method. I don't use it. I'm not an art therapist, so it's not a method.
Okay.
First of all, it's for me, my way of balancing and doing self-care and taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And having to work with trauma and listen to very, very difficult stories or deal with a lot of suffering.
Right.
Human suffering. At the same time, I balance it out, and I also, you know, make sure that I have in my life a lot of the part of the human condition, that it's not just suffering, but it's also imagination, creativity, joy, and happiness, and that comes through art and music. And that's why, for me, not just like enjoying art, but also supporting artists, appreciating art, helping other people develop their artistic abilities. I love that, and I believe in that a lot.
So what's going through my mind as I hear you speak? I mean, I've done a lot of thinking about the connection between sort of seemingly opposing worlds. So we talk about joy and creativity, and we talk about suffering. And on the face of it, those two things sound like opposites. But I don't see it like that anymore. I actually see them as hugely intertwined. And I think when I started reading your book, it also just all came together for me as well. And we'll talk about trauma, obviously. But I want to talk first of all about that. It's like the ability to create through suffering. I'm going to stop talking and you're going to...
No. I mean, it's not so much creating through suffering, because, you know, that goes into the stereotype of the suffering artist.
Yes.
That you have to suffer in order to create your masterpieces.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have so many examples of that. But the way I really think we should be more helpful to talk about and more healthy to talk about is to say, when you're tapping into your own suffering, into your own history, and you make it more conscious about who you are, what you bring into this world, how your understanding of yourself shapes the mission that you have here, or your talents that you can develop. This is where art begins to take shape. When you're truly connected, like with your soul, with your core, you know, this condition, this soul of us has to be manifest and expressed in ways that each of us has a way of doing it. Maybe you do it through sports.
Yeah.
Maybe you do it through music. Maybe you do it through writing. But I think that's what keeps us human.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps us in connection with ourselves and with the world.
So what I'm hearing is the first thing we need to do is to be aware of our suffering. I think. You're saying we connect to our soul through our suffering. I mean, it's a standard thing. It starts with our own self-awareness, no?
Yeah, it's not just the suffering. It's the pain, the experiences that we have, the experiences that we've inherited from our ancestors, who we are, you know, in our connection with ourselves and with others. And part of what art does, and that's why I love it so much, is that it allows color and shape to really form all these expressions. It doesn't have to go through words so much. It doesn't have to go through the logic and the rational, but it comes through the body. That's why, like, art and music and movement, it's like it bypasses so much like the rational piece of us, like the prefrontal cortex of like logic, and it allows us to express feelings and thoughts and experiences in a completely different way. So it's always so beautiful to see that, and I always encourage my patients to really combine whatever the work we're doing together of transformation with art and music and movement and body move. You know, like what we're doing now, the bike riding is already transforming our experience.
Absolutely.
Just because we are moving our body, we're connected with our bodies.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And how long have you been dealing with clinical psychology?
I've been a psychologist all my life. It feels like it. When I was a little girl in school, my friends would call me the psychologist of the school.
Wow.
It's been a beautiful journey in my life. I'm very grateful to be able to do this. This is so nice. We're passing by now a very beautiful part of Miami. This is the W Hotel, and in front we have the Bass Museum, which is one of the oldest museums here that has carried excellent exhibitions of artists, local and international. And on the other side, we have like the ocean and the beach.
Isn't this beautiful?
Yeah,
this is amazing.
People come here at all times of the day to enjoy, to exercise, to disconnect, to meditate. We have like full moon meditations on the beach every month. We do like yoga on the beach here in Miami. You know, I think it's such an integral part of the everyday life.
There's such a positive atmosphere to the place. Very active, high energy. You know, whether it's the nightlife, which is obviously world famous, or the sporting lifestyle on the beach. Yeah. It's amazing. I'm falling in love with this place. I'm like, I go home and tell my wife we're moving to Miami. She might actually like the idea. I don't know.
It's not bad. You know, the thing that I appreciate the most is not only all of this, you know, all of this privilege of advantage of having the ocean and having a place to do bike riding and to do exercise, but also I think Miami has still a very incredible opportunity to have the doors open for anybody that wants to come, and the mix of cultures here and the mix of races and religions and ethnicities is really, really special. And I think that's what, for me, makes it even more magnificent, because whatever corner you turn, you see an authentic, you know, food or music or place to live, like from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And there's something still, I think, in that freedom to be able to express your culture, yourself, who you are in this city.
I think that's such an important point. You know, I obviously talk about this a lot. You know, as part of Ride for Unity, I talk about the strength in being different and having different around you. And, you know, I see it all the time. The greater you have that access, the access to different people around you so you can learn from someone who thinks a bit differently is absolutely huge, of course. I'd like to touch on with you, actually, get your opinion on what I see as a major issue in the world. I talk about this quite a lot, is that it feels to me that in a desire to embrace different, the world has actually gone the other way. It's like it says, right, we want to, like, diversity. Diversity is in its base a fantastic concept, of course, but it seems to have been hijacked, this whole concept, into, like, actually making sure that people can't say anything. I want to be able to be clear, you know, it's led to a lot of cancel culture, which is such a disease. You know, people are now actually afraid to have their own voice. And like here, you said an interesting thing just a couple of minutes ago, that here in Miami, people feel free to express themselves, to have their own voice.
I mean, there are issues too, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I'm not even going to get into some of the political issues that are happening here. And, you know, every minority in some way has an experience of oppression and of discrimination, and I want to acknowledge that too.
Yeah.
You know, being an African American in Miami is not the same as being a white person in Miami.
Sure.
And, you know, so I want to make sure that that's also clear. But having said that, I still think that Miami, like New York a little bit, is still a space for mix of cultures and expressions of identity that is still allowed and is valued, I think. You know, the world, Daniel, has become very polarized. And I think the concept of the other, you know, who the other is that is different than me, has become not so much interesting and, you know, embraced with curiosity, but with threat and danger and rejection. And that's why, you know, when we talk like that, and when you say, oh, where are you from? Or they see your passport and people already have judgment of that. You know, what it does is that it throws people into a survival mode of protecting themselves and rejecting what feels threatening in order to survive. And I think we are going through something like that in the world these days. And that's why the conversation about making things more open and available for everybody and making places more safe for connection is so important. And I don't want to idealize Miami, but I think there's a part of Miami that wants to continue to build community. And I think we can do that anywhere in the world. I mean, that's one of the things that I want, that I've been working on and doing with different groups and people that I connect with to have this, you know, building community and building connection everywhere. But, you know, we just passed Faena, which is one of my favorite places here in
What is
Faena?
Faena? Tell me about Faena.
Faena is a hotel built by this very, very eccentric Argentinian who also has a Faena in Argentina. And he brought here the whole street that we just passed by. It's called the Faena Street. And every building is something different. One is a hotel, the other one is like a Casa Faena that hosts art and culture. The other one is a amphitheater with that you know, those performances. The other one is like a hub for like creativity, arts and crafts, and it's all kinds of things. And they are an integral part of the arts and culture here in Miami. I love it. I love spending time there.
This is great, cycling through the different districts.
Yes.
Absolutely
now
fantastic.
We're in the Art Deco. There's some of the Art Deco buildings here that are so beautiful, that really have been built from the 50s and the 40s.
So these are residential buildings here,
These are all hotels.
Oh, hotels,
Every
okay.
single one of these buildings is a hotel. and people stay here, and these are the places to stay. These are where the events happen. Like Miami is very much a hospitality, city, and things happen in hotels.
So a little bit of a break. The beach is so beautiful. Let's go for a walk. We leave the bikes alone for a bit?
Yeah, let's go for a walk.
Okay, come on. Do you come to the beach often?
I come to the beach very specifically to ground myself, to go for walks. I come in the morning early and I come late at night also. Especially when the full moon is on.
Wow.
It lights up the whole beach and it's so nice.
I love these seagulls, I have to say. I have a thing about seagulls. I love seagulls.
Really?
Yeah.
Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
One of my favorite books when I was a kid. When I was a kid. I loved it.
One of my favorite books when I was a kid.
Look, when the sun's coming out on the water is just absolutely fabulous. How gorgeous is this?
I have a lot of friends that live in Miami that take as a practice to come like 5, 6 in the morning to the beach for the meditation. And really they tell me, I haven't started doing that on a regular basis, but they tell me that doing that every day really sets the tone for the rest of the day. And sometimes they even meet fellow souls that are coming at 5 or 6 in the morning, connect, have a meaningful conversation, and then go about your day. And what a beautiful way to start, right? I think that's important to set the tone in some way.
Yeah, definitely. I've tried to stop because I'm really addicted to my phone. And I feel that's the biggest problem that I have personally. And so not checking my messages first thing as I open my eyes, give half an hour with nothing. Yeah. I've tried to do that. I'm not always successful, I have to admit. But it makes a big difference to me. We talk about setting the tone for the rest of the day and being clear of thought. Yeah. I've really tried to get away from technology.
I and everybody in the world right now is having the same problem. You know that the phones, just to get a little bit more neuropsychological, the phone has a blue light that sends information to your neurotransmitters in the brain and to the neurons in the brain that it's daytime and it's light and you should be wide awake. So instead of the body going to the circadian rhythm and slowly entering to the day and slowly going to sleep, it flashes this blue light when we go to sleep or when we wake up in the morning, that all of a sudden you have to be awake, you have to be done, you have to be stressed, you have to be on the go, and it interrupts that cycle in such a very
and yet we still do it.
Unhealthy way, and we still do it.
We still do it.
So that's why, getting off of a phone and not having all that overload of information and stimulation is so important. Also, what's the other thing? When you don't get on the phone right away first thing in the morning, you still remember and lingering ideas of your dreams and of your unconscious. Yeah. And you have more access to that. And it gives you information about yourself, about what's going on in that, darker place and more hidden place of your mind and of your soul. And, you might get some really interesting treasures that are coming out in the morning.
What goes through my mind here is self-discipline, which is such an important thing. We know, I know, that it's not good for me to wake up with the phone and it's not good for me to go to bed with the phone. And yet I still do it, or I'm trying now to disconnect from it. And I think taking accountability for ourselves, we know something is good or bad for us, and yet our actions don't really. When I look at young people in particular, talking like an old man here, that lack of decision-making from being accountable for yourself, it then, and I want to get your opinion on this, can lead to blaming everything else for things not going my way. And that lack of accountability is a key thing in Gen Z, millennial generation. Again, it's very, very general comment that. Yeah. Do you see that as well?
Absolutely. I see it especially in our teenagers and young adults. And I've been thinking a lot about that. What does it mean to have accountability? What does it mean to be responsible for your actions? One of the things that I think it's interrupting this understanding of how you are responsible for your actions. Believe it or not, I blame it on social media. Why?
What a surprise.
But I'll tell you why. Because when you are interacting in social media, when you're existing in the virtual world, your presence is not one-on-one, real, in your face, looking in the eyes.
Yeah.
It's more, you have an anonymous presence, right? You can be and comment and interact with others without really showing who you are, without having a name, without having a face. And that anonymity allows you to say things, to do things, without having any kind of accountability. So I think that spreads in the rest of the day, in the rest of the, of your life.
Yeah.
So when you're doing something and when you're interacting with other people and not really saying who you are and what you think about, what your thoughts are, how you feel. One of the typical things that I have with teenagers is that they enter into relationships and end relationships on text. Or they do this thing called ghosting. Our friends do it too. It's not just teenagers.
Yeah.
It's not just Gen Z.
Yeah.
And then there's this ghosting means like you're not accountable for your actions. You're not responsible to say, hey, you know what? I don't feel like we can talk anymore, or it really bothered me what you said or what you did. Can we talk about it? And that goes into the problems in the world too. It's like if I only hang out with people that think my way, and if you don't agree with me, then I stop talking to you. Then it goes into other things in life.
I think that's exactly spot on. And that lack of accountability, that ability to just shut off, leads to so many bad things, and it touches on the polarization that we were talking about before.
Yeah, and it also touches on taking responsibility for your life.
100%.
Because if you go in the world saying, and I think that's one of your values from Right for Unity, is like not be a victim.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like the victimhood. It's like, come on, like really own what you are and what you do. I think part of not taking responsibility is being so fearful of the consequences.
Yes.
What happens if I make a mistake? What happens if I'm not perfect? Instagram perfect.
Yeah.
If I make a mistake and then everybody's going to stop talking to me or judge me or cancel me.
For sure.
I don't want to say that it was me. I don't want to say my opinions. I don't want to show my vulnerabilities. The shame that I'm going to get from everybody is going to be so big that it's going to be unbearable. I mean, people have committed suicide over shaming, over bullying. So I understand the dilemma. I understand how difficult it can be. But we're not helping, we're not, as a society, we're not promoting more authenticity, more presence, more, showing your feelings and really saying what you think.
People talk about it a lot, but in almost a very inauthentic way. Do you know what I mean? Like you talk about, you see on social media all these things about, got to be so authentic. And I see these posts, and I see how curated this post is, telling people how to be authentic. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know if it's just getting worse and worse from that point of view. We're sort of putting our finger on the problem, but not actually diving in. Yeah. I think a lot of it is to do with dealing with our fears, really dealing with our fears. Because like you said, it's hard to look someone in the eye and say, I'm breaking up with you. Yeah. It's hard to fire someone. It's hard to tell people things they don't want to hear. Yes. So people ghost or they text or they hide behind a wall. And if they need to deal with that fear, they can get beyond that and actually reach authenticity.
Right. And the fear is all about feeling those feelings that might be very uncomfortable. It's like, what if I fire the other person and how am I going to feel? Yeah. What am I going to do with those feelings? Yeah. If I break up with the other one, if somebody doesn't accept me in their group, my feelings of rejection, of abandonment, of shaming, like how do I deal with feelings? I don't know how to deal with feelings. I'd rather not deal with it. And the disconnection and the dissociation from ourselves gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it gets fed into, okay, instead of thinking about my feelings, I'm going to go into Instagram, into TikTok.
Escape a bit.
Escaping. Yeah. And there's so many ways to escape now in the world. All of us have addictions. Yeah. Every single one of us have. I'm addicted to chocolate 100%. It's true. I confess. And
chocolate's healthy though. If it's good chocolate.
I know, but I eat a lot of chocolate.
Okay.
So, but I'd rather be addicted to chocolate than addicted to other things. So, and as long as I'm acknowledging it and being conscious of it and trying, I'm on my way of like reducing the amount of chocolate that I, like you can cycle and it's all good and everything. Now, if you're cycling every time you have a problem with your wife, that's a problem.
Did she tell you something? Honestly, my wife hates me cycling. She looks at me every time I take my road cycle out. She sort of goes, bye, because it's so dangerous, especially where I live. Oh. The drivers are crazy, and she always wonders if that's the last time I'm going to see her. Anyway, I have a question. Talk about endurance athletes. Mm-hmm. Some people, I think, go into endurance, like, I'm talking about not people like I cycle, I just have a bit of fun. There are people who do ultra marathons and Ironman and things like that. I honestly have started to see a difference between the people who do it as a driver to them and then people who do it as an escape. And then it's actually making things worse. They're blocking themselves out from actually solving their issues. Yeah. And on the course, you see two Ironmen that look exactly the same, but one is just an escape and one is an escape artist. He's like absolute unbelievable. And the other, that's the driver to growth. You know, actually taking it to a different area.
No, that's a brilliant, I think, question and a distinction. Also, to add into that mix, do you know that when you do sports a lot, you segregate, you produce a lot of adrenaline, and the adrenaline that you produce is addictive also. Yes. And then your body wants more, and it wants more, and it wants more higher doses of adrenaline and higher. So doing an Ironman, which is an extreme, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally.
can create a lot of addiction into, life is boring. Yeah. I don't have excitement. Yeah. I need to do this very, very challenging things to feel like that I'm alive. Yeah. So that's a way also. I mean, are you doing it because you really believe in it, because it's a sport, because you're addicted to adrenaline, because you're escaping yourself, because the world out there, being in an extreme place is more manageable than your everyday intimate relationship with your partner or with your children. So all these things can happen at the same time.
Fascinating. Let's get back on the bikes and talk about addiction in a bit. Well, that was a nice stop.
That was so nice. We got to see seagulls.
I love it.
Enjoy the ocean.
Wow. I think we could do this all day.
It's bringing me so much joy just to be on the bike. Just to
so you got to do it more. When was the last time you cycled?
Don't want to say.
Come on. It's admission time.
I would say like 6 months ago. It's bad. I mean, I have this beautiful thing here. I was just saying I should do this every weekend. Really. I used to do this either biking or rollerblading up and down Ocean Drive. Yeah. It's the most fun, the happiest. Gorgeous, but,
I mean, like, since we've been starting, there's people, look at everyone running up and down. Yeah. Beautiful people everywhere.
Yeah, and on the weekends you see children and families also. And on this side, every hotel has its own personality, its own music, its own thing. You see, like when you hear also people, when they're talking, you see tourists, you see locals, people that are starting their week, people that are here on vacation, that just came for the holidays. So here we are in Miami Beach in the week of the Art Basel, and this exhibition is the Great Elephant Migration. I love it.
It's beautiful.
It represents the migration of elephants from Tamil Nadu in India. These are made from a material called lantana, which is a kind of weed that grows, and I was growing disproportionately in different parts of the world, especially in India, and it was like throwing away, like making other species get out of of their habitats. So they were making this in order to support different species, but also to represent the mass migration of elephants and how communities get connected. I love it. You know that there are 100 elephants, and each elephant is a real elephant with its own characteristics, and it has a name, and it's sponsored by a family. So each of them.
How beautiful.
And they're like little babies and big ones and one with horns and one's like... So I've gone to each and every one of them and said hi.
That's such a beautiful exhibition.
It's been so special. There have been thousands of people coming every day to see this mass migration.
Great. So we're heading back now. You getting hungry?
Very.
Okay, breakfast on me.
Woohoo! See what I get for getting out of my comfort zone?
There you go.
I get invited for breakfast. I like the architecture here of the Art Deco. Yeah. They kept a lot of architectural buildings that were from like really early on, and then they mix it with modern architecture. So it's an interesting mix. It was such good exercise.
Exercise. Okay, we'll put that word in inverted commas. If you want to think of this as exercise, that's fine.
Of course. course, it counts. Everything counts.
No, that's true. I don't want to be a cycling snob about it.
No, then we'll do the real ride. When the cameras are off.
Yeah.
We'll
Take some proper...
We'll do
down to
a
Key
competition.
Biscayne.
A competition.
Oh,
from
yeah,
there.
now we're talking. Now we're talking.
Let's see.
There's some beautiful trails around here. So is this going to inspire you to cycle more?
100%.
Oh,
Really.
there you
this
go. I
is
feel
so
my job is done.
inspiring. Yes, you planted the seed. It got me back to connecting with this ride on Ocean Drive.
It's really lovely.
Because I have such happy memories here. And it's so inspiring to see everybody doing exercise and everybody being here, present, not on their phones.
Yeah. What can we do? Difficult to disconnect
No,
and
I know,
reconnect.
but yeah.
Disconnect and reconnect. That's what we've got to do.
Yes.
So would you ever live anywhere else?
Oh, yeah.
Where?
In different parts of the world already. For me, it has more to do with the people than the place. And also, for me, I'm connected to the place where I live, but I'm also very connected to the world in general. So more than living in a place, I am super curious to visiting like really different cultures and different places. I have such a list of places.
Amazing.
So many places.
There's so many places. There's no end of
to do.
people
I
and
can't keep up.
cultures.
So when you ask me where do I want to live, I don't know. I want to be going places.
Yeah.
More than just.
Yeah.
I
That's
say
for sure.
I don't mind basing my life, which I think works really well, between Miami and New York.
Yeah.
Because it's a great combination.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is keep exploring the world.
Why
so
not?
much to explore.
There's so much to see,
Right,
so much to find out.
See.
And I think, like you said as well, it's all about the people at the end of the day.
For me, yes.
I read an interesting article about someone, from someone. He decided, he was like in his late 20s, you know, that age where you're still discovering a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
And he said that he decided he's going to quit his job and he's going to get a camper van and like go on the road on his own and explore himself and whatever. And he was really excited about this, whatever. After a month of being on his own, he said he had the worst time in his life.
Wow.
And he realized that where on the face of it, and from an Instagrammable perspective, it looks amazing. The lack of belonging to something, the lack of connecting with people, it almost killed him.
Yeah.
He said he was so depressed, and he realized that what he needs is not the fancy places, the fancy pictures and whatever. And, you know, he's 28, so he realized this at an early age. And I think he realizes what at some stage all of us realize, or at least I hope all of us realize, is that it's the people we connect with. And that sense of belonging to something is so important. I've never understood those people who just decide to constantly be on the move and never belong to anything. Even if they're like a bit nomadic, they can belong to a nomadic tribe.
It is.
Yeah. So that's still belonging to something.
That is belonging.
I'm not saying that I love traveling, but you have to have something that you connect to.
Yeah,
And that something has to be connected to people.
Yeah.
And that's my view of it anyway.
Yes, I have friends now, and this is people that are part of my tribe. You know, I have many tribes. One of the tribes is the World Happiness Foundation.
Oh, yes.
And some of the people in that tribe are going from country to country, from city to city, and doing beautiful connecting work. I have two of my friends that are exploring the blue zones. And you know about the blue zones, right?
Explain to me.
No, this is a very important conversation.
Okay, well, I'm willing to have it. I mean,
Okay.
What better than the present time?
The blue zones are places in the world that have been marked as the happiest places where people live the longest and the healthiest.
Okay.
Oh,
This has been so much fun.
we're back where we started. See the rollerblades. That's
Yeah.
my people.
I haven't been on rollerblades for so long.
When was the last time you were on rollerblades?
Probably about 6-7 years.
No,
like,
I was on rollerblades last week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I do
Oh man.
rollerblading. I did roller disco last week.
Really?
We were dancing.
No way.
It was so much fun.
Oh my God.
So much
Learning
fun.
more about these sides of you. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Roller disco?
Yeah, we do roller disco. We do it once a month.
Oh my God, I want to come to this.
Yeah, don't plan. But yeah, with rollerblades here, you know, you go from the tip of South Beach all the way up to Midtown. This used to be the heart of Miami, right here.
Yeah.
Yes, this used to be like Miami Beach. This is it. You know, this is where this is like the Art Deco original.
Yeah.
And this is where people would come for vacation in the 20s, in the 1920s.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually,
Yes.
it seems to have retained a lot of the...
No, they kept it on purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah, of course.
sure.
They need to keep the architecture.
Like, obviously maintained it, but it has that.
Well, because
Beautiful.
it's a national treasure.
Absolutely.
You know, and you see it's supposed to remind you of the Great Gatsby,
Yeah.
you know, that era.
Absolutely wonderful.
So this was the place where everybody would come to go to the beach, to go to the ocean, to eat in the restaurants here. Now it's become very, very touristic.
Yeah, well, obviously.
Yeah.
All the places become.
Yeah.
All the best places.
So, like, me as a local living in Miami, I don't come here that often.
Yeah, understood.
That's one thing about Miami. It feels like vacation a lot.
I just feel like the luckiest guy alive
You
right now.
picked the best place, honestly.
This is so much fun.
This is such a famous one.
Yeah, the Colony
you see
Hotel.
it everywhere.
Looks a bit iconic, huh?
Yeah, very. But now every time you see something like that, you know it's Miami Beach. Like, that's the typical.
Here we are. Amazing. That was superb. Edith, I've had the most amazing morning with you, cycling up Ocean Drive.
Me too.
Thank you so much. It's been insightful, it's been fun, it's been everything. And I'm starving now. How about we go get some breakfast?
I need coffee.
Definitely. And then we're going to meet again later on.
Yes.
So, and
to continue.
And to get really open and vulnerable, yeah? You promised me.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what's going to happen. You know, it's
Unscripted.
unscripted.
We'll see what happens. Maybe
trust.
I'll have to open up and get vulnerable.
Exactly. This has
But it's
been
gonna be
what a
amazing.
blessing, really, to do this.
Thank you so
for
much.
bringing this into Miami.
Muchas gracias. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
And see you in a bit. Here we are. Welcome to the continuation of my discussion with the amazing Dr. Edith Shiro. And I welcome you to your own house. Thank you so much for inviting me in and agreeing to have this conversation here in your absolutely fabulous place.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is really such an honor to have you in my place and to have a conversation with you. I don't think I've ever done this particular setting, so I'm excited and open to see how this is going to unfold.
Good, because I think that the key to this is just being open and saying we deliberately think of it as unscripted. I have no questions that I prepared to ask you, but I just know that having a conversation with you will be fascinating. And I'd love to delve in. You know, we had a great talk this morning cycling. Thank you very much for joining me for that. That was so much fun.
An amazing experience, yes.
And we open our minds a little bit, you know, getting the motion, we talked about that. Getting into motion really opens up a conversation. And now sitting here in your home, I'd like to continue and go a bit deeper.
Okay.
Okay? Are you ready?
Yes.
So what should we talk about?
Where should we begin? No, what should we talk about that is meaningful and is life-changing, or at least for us to see a different perspective?
Okay, so you've triggered something immediately.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so one of the things we started to talk about earlier today was the concept of happiness. Happiness is a massive concept, and everyone's definition of happiness will be different. I'm going to park a question that you're not going to like in a minute, but until then, tell me of your engagement with happiness, not just through the group that you're a part of. I'd love to hear about that, but your engagement personally with happiness.
So I love that question. I come from a family of parents, grandparents, and ancestors that have gone through a lot of suffering. I think partly that's why I'm so connected with everything that has to do with trauma and healing. And part of that legacy, in some way, I have to say it like that intergenerational transmission of that trauma has to do with suffering, has to do with pain, has to do with escaping and becoming a refugee and overcoming great adversity. And one of the mandates, I think, in the belief system on my ancestors is like not so much permission for pleasure and not so much permission for joy. And that's one of the things that I think I was asking myself early on and saying, where is the joy? Where is the happiness? Where is the free, pleasurable, like letting go in some way and not having to carry so much heaviness, and say, is it possible to live a life in which you allow for pleasure and happiness and joy together with acknowledging and recognizing the suffering? And I think that's where I started to ask those questions.
I think that's fascinating. Is it joy through the suffering, or is it in spite of the suffering, or is it together with?
Exactly. So those were the questions that I was asking at the earlier in my life. And I said, okay, can I have both the suffering and the pain and the happiness at the same time? Do they coexist? And as I was becoming more of a experienced psychologist and got exposed to so many of my patients and different communities and different families and cultures, I began to think about happiness in a way not so much as a moment, but as a result of a long-term work within yourself of becoming more conscious and aware of who you are, and as a result of the work that you do with your suffering and your pain. So when you are more aware of the suffering and pain that you carry, or that you've lived through, or that you inherited from your ancestors, and you're able to see that and recognize it, you can do something with it. So it's not just accepting it and saying, oh, well, this is what I've got, this is what I lived, and I can look for some pleasurable things, or so from, pleasure and happiness, but let me use all those experiences and transform them into something that can take me to a more happy life, or a more meaningful life that is more fulfilling, or that can give me more permission to feel that joy and that pleasure in some way.
You use the word meaningful. I see it as a very different thing. Happiness and meaningful life, I see them as two very different things. And even the word contentment, I'd like to explore. But I had a conversation with someone recently about the difference between happiness and contentment. But given the fact you use the word meaningful, I think striving for a meaningful life is the noblest thing we can do. And what do we even mean by that? What is a meaningful life? I'll tell you in a minute what I think it is, because I've had a lot of thoughts about this over the last few years. But what does it mean for you to have a meaningful life?
I would love to hear what you think of what a meaningful life is. And I do want to tell you, I don't necessarily agree with you in terms of like happiness and meaningful is not the same. Because the way I understand happiness is not just a moment in time, or how happy you are when you acquire a new car, a new boat, a new house, a new place, or even like that momentary fulfillment of something that is external. When I'm talking about happiness, it's like this well-being, at least it's the way I use it, is a state of well-being. It's not like you are happy, you be happy.
Okay.
It's like a state of being that is happening. It's not like you are it's not that you're happy, it's that you are happiness.
Okay.
And it's part of your life. And that also comes with connecting with your life purpose and connecting with a life that has meaning. That's why for me, they're very intertwined.
Okay. So what we're saying, because a lot of people use the word happy as a much more superficial, surface area expression, an external expression of joy. Like I'm out with friends, I'm happy. I'm like you said, bought a new car, which is definitely just a quick peak.
Right.
And I'm happy. But you're using the word, and I align that actually much more with what I have in mind for contentment, something much more deep-seated inside us, that we are content. We have a state of being. It could be sitting down reading a book. It could be anything. It could just be being with our children. It could be just being on our own, walking down the street, and you have that sense of being.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so now I understand you, and I agree with you that it's we can get lost in the lexicon of it sometimes, but then it does start to tie in with having a more meaningful life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But I'll tell you how I think that or at least this is the conclusion I've come to myself in the last few years. And maybe it's part of why I push Ride for Unity and love it so much. I've come to the conclusion that having a meaningful, and I use the word significant life, having a significant life, the more I look at it, only ever comes when you have a positive impact through your actions on another person. It doesn't have to be philanthropic. It can be if we set up a company and create employment for people, if we deliver a technology that the world doesn't have, you're creating a positive impact on other people's lives. I cannot imagine, and I've looked at this, I cannot imagine a scenario where you can live a meaningful life where that isn't the base scenario. Does that make sense?
For me, it makes absolute and total sense. Not only that, but the way that I talk about my topic that I've been talking about in the last 2 years, which is post-traumatic growth, the way to achieve healing in life after trauma, or the way to really have a more conscious life, has everything to do with connecting with your life purpose in a way that it's not only healing yourself, but it's also giving to others. And it's only in that giving to others and like giving back to the community that you're having that sense of happiness and purpose and fulfillment. Why? Because it brings connection. And we are, relational beings. For me, what we talk about, everything we're talking about, it's in relationship to myself, to other, and to the world.
Yes.
So when we talk about happiness, it's in relationship. When we talk about and connection, when we talk about purpose, it's in relationship and in connection. When we talk about, the consciousness or well-being in the world or peace in the world, it's in relationship and connection. So, right.
I agree totally. And that point, human connection just comes through in almost everything we think about these days. And the worry at the moment is people are losing that natural human connection and we're having to rebuild it. I think we talked about that a little bit on the bikes this morning as we were connecting up Ocean Drive, and it was beautiful. Human connection feels to me everything, and technology, as great as it is also driving a wedge between people. It's giving them the ability to not connect. I had a guy who worked with me for many years, and he was a great operations manager. He was terrible with people because he didn't like people. He worked great with me. And I remember we were checking into a hotel once, and it was at the airport hotel. We had an early flight the next day, and he got super excited when we got there, and you could do self-check-in. He goes, "Oh, great, I don't have to talk to anyone." And for me, it was like, "Oh my God, where's my chit-chat with the receptionist?" I love that. And it just had such a stark difference between me and him. And I felt sorry for him because he's searching how to disconnect from people all the time. And I'm always searching to talk and find out what anyone can bring, even if it's some little spark to a conversation.
Right. So the way I understand that comes from my lens, of course, as a psychologist and what I've seen in my work, in working with people for 30 years, which is that we're really born with the need for connection. We're born with the need for a sense of belonging, a sense of being part of another person's life, that they can see us, that they can recognize it, that sense of recognition, of acknowledgement. That's basic for life.
Yeah.
And when a person rejects that, it's coming from a very deep sense of trauma and brokenness and wounds that have not been healed. And that's something to really think about.
So you're saying this guy had trauma?
I do.
Maybe I should call him.
I do.
I spoke
you
to
should
him.
call him. You should call him. But this is what happens. I mean, when we see, I know in Ride for Unity, you talk about polarization and how to deal with polarization. And that's a topic I think it's so important to talk about now, because we are in this pandemic of loneliness that is happening not just in our generation. It's coming from early kids, young teenagers, young adults, really elementary school children that are talking in this way about, I'm lonely, life has no meaning, I don't want to live. And I have this, it's almost like I have this in my office. It's like I can't believe an 11-year-old, a 15-year-old is talking like this. And that has to do with that level of disconnect and isolation that we're living in, and that it's being promoted more and more and more. And when does that happen? When we are in situations that are very threatening, our nervous system automatically goes in survival mode. And survival mode means that I close myself up. I am not connected with the other. I'm not open. My nervous system is in survival, which means like everything is a threat, right? I have to look for everything for danger. The tiger is coming to eat me, so I have to close up and hide. So we do that by disconnecting, by dissociating, by running away, by paralyzing. And I'm talking emotionally, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. And this is the state in which you find kids and in which you find adults. So when you talk to another human being that is all closed up, you know that person is in absolute survival mode and saying, you're the other that can hurt me and I don't want to be close to you. And I have to protect myself. Because otherwise, when you're in a place where you feel safe and you feel connected and you feel protected, you reach out and you allow for the other to come into you. And this is an enrichment. Like you say, you cannot imagine doing something that is fulfilling, that it's not about giving to the other. But you have to be in that place of safety for that to happen.
So I'm thinking, I'm sorry to keep talking about myself, my own experiences, but I'm thinking about something that happened to me. So because of my character, which you really got to know, so I'll talk to everyone, of course, but maybe it goes the other way too far. So I used to chat to, and I've always chatted to people. I enjoy that. I enjoy it. I feel like I get a lot of benefit from it. I get a lot of good experience, good information that I never had before. But I feel like I went through a period in my life where I was like telling my life story to random strangers. And I started to question, why am I doing this? Like, there's clearly something wrong, that I have to sort of shower my information on someone else. And I've thankfully became aware of that, and I think I've stopped doing it. I don't know. But so tell me, doctor, what do you think of that?
Well, but this, I'm so impressed that you're able to have that kind of consciousness and awareness about what you were doing, because that's another way of keeping some distance. One of the things that we are very afraid of is that intimacy, because intimacy requires vulnerability, right? It requires for you to be more open, to be seen for real in an authentic way, to be seen in a way that you are like, this is who I am with my strengths and my weaknesses. Yeah. This is part of me. There are shadows that are, that are not so easy to show. And we put all kinds of barriers with the other person so they don't see some of these parts. And sometimes it's by being more quiet and by being more distant. And sometimes it's by talking a lot because they keep you distracted. And then you don't get to see the real me. You just hear my words and ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And then you don't really see what's going on inside of me, right?
Yeah. That sounds like me a while back. Hopefully it's cured now. But yeah. I definitely see that. And it's just two expressions of the same thing.
But I think that maybe I think you told me it came from a place where you were more quiet even before, and that you pushed yourself to be more open and to be more extroverted, maybe?
Yes, I think so. When I was growing up around, I didn't realize this was going to turn into a psychology session. I was really clever. I don't know how you did that, but anyway, so.
You were more introverted when you were a kid.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I was definitely a little bit more introverted. I was constantly worried about what people think, which I think is fairly normal, especially when growing up. And then I met a couple of people, and there was one person in particular who just came into my life briefly. But it's amazing how some people come into your lives, and that guy, he will have no idea the change he made in me. I just looked at him and how open and charismatic and free he was just to talk to absolutely anyone. And I literally said to myself, that's a gift, that's a power. I sort of want to be like that. I don't think I said I want to be like him. I said I want to be like that. And I'm definitely not like him. He's a wonderful guy. I mean, I haven't seen him for 28 years or something, but I think that triggered me to be a lot more extroverted and talk to a lot of people. And my life definitely changed a huge amount.
That's incredible. I mean, that's what we call, I think we mentioned that before, a mentor. And in some way, these are examples of people in our lives that teach us ways of being, ways of thinking, that can be open to be generous about, hey, this worked for me. Can you try? You want to try it? And I encourage you to contact him and say, hey, thank you for what you've done in my life. Maybe you don't know this, but you've changed my life in some ways. And, that's like, it's going to... Yeah, no, I'm sure he's going to remember. But it might make you feel even better than, he'll receive that thank you. But that sense of gratitude changes people. That's another thing that, is connected with happiness and well-being, is that sense of gratitude. It's like when you're helping somebody else and when you're giving somebody else, yes, the other person is benefiting from what you're doing, but you're the happiest in the room.
Yeah.
And I know you've experienced that.
Oh, that's 100%.
Right? So it's like, yeah, you're doing this for everybody, but the happiest is you because you're giving and you're having that. Wow, that sounds like, something good is happening inside of you that you're allowed to and you're able to give all of that. And I think that's, interesting how you consciously shifted something in your personality, in your way of relating to be more open and to be more connected with others. And maybe it has to do with you having to change cultures so much growing up, right?
It will be.
Yeah.
I think so. I'm sure that has helped me tremendously living in a few different countries and experiencing many different types of people for sure. Let's take the conversation back to happiness. Yeah. Let's talk about you for a little bit. Enough about me. Let's talk about you. Are you happy?
So I love that question because the way I define happiness is by me being aligned with my life purpose. And I am so grateful that I'm so aligned with what I do, with my life purpose, with my mission, with my understanding of what I'm doing in the world. That's why I feel like I don't work. All I do in my life is do the things that I love doing, which is every day waking up and doing. And of course, I have my days of sadness and depression and loneliness and uncertainty, of course. And, I reach out to my friends and to my family and to people and say, hey, what's going on with me?
Yeah.
As my cat is joining you.
It's so lovely to be.
He wants to be part of a conversation. Of course. But it's also true that I have this like contentment sense of like, I am doing what I really want to do. I'm doing what I'm good at doing. And I think I have such a privilege of seeing every day in my life how people transform, with the help, how people change, how they allow me to help them. That's like incredible for me. And they benefit, then I benefit more.
Of course.
So
that's always the way, isn't it? You come and help others, you end up feeling enriched yourself. I mean,
yeah.
When we had our first event was the Ride for Unity, and I brought these superhuman beings to the UAE to cycle around 7 Emirates in 7 days. And they came of their own volition to join this thing. So we're going to give, we're going to visit schools, we're going to visit this, They left feeling so enriched. I said, they told me, I got messages from all of them saying that was life-changing for me. And these are people who are life changers. And to get that feedback from them was unbelievable and was life-changing for me as well. And I see it as a huge privilege. And the way I see privilege, it's an interesting word. I see that totally entwined with responsibility. If you're in a position of privilege, I think that's why I decided that I just want to throw myself into this, for example, and you throw yourself into what you do. Is that if we're in that position that we've got certain abilities and certain positions that are privileged, let's use that as much as we possibly can. It's a responsibility because not everyone and very few people are actually in that position that they can do that.
Yeah, I honestly think I'm not so 100% aligned with what you're saying in the sense that I think that every person in the world has something that is their light that they can share with the world. And that's the privilege that I see in every person. And it's almost like
know that.
Right.
They have to be shown.
That's true. They have to be shown, or they have to discover, or they have to be allowed to do it, or they have to be in a place where it's safe enough and protected enough that they can discover it. But every person in the world has a talent and a gift that can be shared. And that's why part of why I talk about the gift of trauma, because I also believe that every person in the world has some sort of trauma.
Yeah.
Some people have a bigger trauma, a smaller trauma, like some experiences that are difficult or painful, whatever. And every person can turn that into a gift, into a talent, into a purpose, into something to give. So really, that's a message that I try to spread all over the world and say you're not small enough or big enough or anything enough that you cannot do this also.
But it has to start with awareness. So
100%.
It has to. So I know a huge amount of privileged people that don't realize they're privileged, and they are objectively privileged. And if they don't think they're privileged, then they're not privileged.
Well, and I know a lot of people that are suffering and they don't know they can turn that suffering into something that can help themselves and others. So
Exactly. So they think, poor me, I can't do anything, I need
yes.
help or whatever.
Yeah.
And there are some people who objectively are not privileged. They come from very impoverished backgrounds, for example. They don't have the opportunities of other people, and yet they have that light in them. They are aware of what they have. So I think I'll call it subjective privilege is what makes people privileged. I think their own perception of themselves is what I'm thinking right now as you're talking about it.
Yeah.
Like if someone else says, like I know a lot of wealthy people who they would never consider themselves privileged. They are objectively privileged, and they just don't think they've got much to give to the world.
I think that the way you're using that word is more related to material richness. And I think, there can be used in many other ways as well. So having like a way of seeing your life with abundance, with connections.
Again, it's subjective.
Right.
The way I see it.
Right. So, that's why it's a little loaded, that word. So, I mean, it's like we can use other words also to describe that experience, and that it's related to happiness. I wanted to tell you something that you were asking before. Do you know that this concept of happiness, of course, there's so many people that are pursuing that want to be happy, that want to say, okay, how can I live a life that is more happy? And a lot of the research has shown that there are certain things that have to be there for happiness. And I wonder if you have that in your life. I'm going to ask you if some of these conditions you can see for yourself or your family or your community. So there's a long-term study that has been on at Harvard for the last 80 years in which they follow people of different backgrounds, different classes, different levels of education, different cultures and religions. And they have certain questions about measuring happiness and well-being.
Right.
And they found over time, and this has gone through like a few different researchers because, it's been for many years. They found one common factor for all these people. And I wonder if you know what it is. And I can tell you, it's not the books, the amount of books they have. It's not the amount of money that they have. It's not the amount of... it's not the city where they live, or the privilege that they have, or the work that they do. What do you think it is?
I would assume it has to be connected to their circle of human connection.
Yes.
So how strong their circles of human connection are. And there are various levels of human connection. There's the obvious ones, which are our closest, our family, our closest friends, which I think are the ones that impact us most. And if people don't have that and they've got loneliness in their life, I don't think they can be happy. I think. Am I right?
So, that's yours. No. Yeah. In the betting world, you won. So
I want to know. I'm happy.
In the competitive world, you won. It's really the way that they phrase it is about having meaningful connections and meaningful relationships.
Yes.
So people that have good friends, good family members that are close, like real and meaningful, like those friends that are for life and those friends that are keep showing up and that you feel that you can count on, those are the people that live the longest and the happiest, which I think is fascinating, and it's something we already know, by instinct. But it's good that the research shows that. And I'm going to tell you another one that is super interesting. And I thought that a lot of people knew about this, but, the more I talk about it, the more I know that people might not be having this concept. It's called the blue zones. So this researcher called Dan Buettner, I can't pronounce it very well, but it's Buettner, was curious about longevity and said, how come people are living longer? How come in some places people are living over 90 and 100 actually, and in other places they don't? And does that make them people have a better life, a longer life, a life with wellness? And he started looking at different areas in the world, and he found 5 places in the world that are the blue zones. Those are the official blue zones.
Where are we moving? Tell me.
Exactly. So you have a choice.
Okay.
You can move
Is it warm? It has to be warm.
I know, I agree with you.
Warm.
So one is Okinawa in Japan. The other one is Ikaria in Greece. The other one is Nicoya in Costa Rica. Been there. I love it and recommend it. The other one is Loma Linda in California and Sardinia in Italy. Yeah. So what they've seen in those blue zones is something that happens in every one of them. That's why I wonder if you have that in your community, which is people that live over 100. They move a lot. They walk a lot up and down hills. They eat food that is from the earth, like very, very healthy food that a lot of the times they prepare, they plant, they cultivate. They have a lot of social events. They gather. Let's get together today for this and tomorrow for that. They have a sense of happiness and purpose that they either have a very spiritual life. In Loma Linda specifically is a more, I think, evangelical community. But in general, it's like a more spiritual life or more connected life. And these are the things that they've seen over and over and over that has made people live over 100 and happy.
That's amazing.
How amazing is that?
I'm surprised that there's a place in the States, I have to say, that there's a place in the US
I think
in that list.
Because in the States, specifically because it's like a religious community that they've kept together. So that sense of community, I mean, do you have that do you see that around you?
Absolutely. I'm very blessed with that. I mean, I moved to Israel 25 years ago. Israel, as we all know, is a very complex place. Of course, difficult times last year and a half. But Israel is very... I used to say, and I've lived there 25 years now, I used to say that I can give you 100 things I don't like about this place, but it's me.
Yeah.
And I belong here.
Wow.
And I'm not only talking from a religious point of view. I just feel that this is a place that it reflects my character, for good and for bad as well. I could say I would much prefer passing my time in Italy. I love Italy, but I feel like I belong more. And that question of belonging is critical. And I'll give you an example of... So I'm very blessed. My wife's family is very tight-knit, Yemenite background, very tight-knit, see each other all the time. And I love my mother-in-law, which I feel very blessed. I don't get the jokes that people make about their mother-in-laws. I'm so...
You don't get them.
And I just feel that then there's a wider community which we're exposed to. And now I'm starting thinking about the different levels of connection. So there's family, then there's the neighborhood. So there's definitely a neighborhood aspect, which is fantastic. Then there's the wider community, and I've been also very blessed setting up a company. And now I think about that. That's almost a community. That's definitely a community.
Of course.
We've had over 1,700 people go through our doors at our sports data company over the last 20 years. And it is absolutely a community. I have people still messaging me who left us 13 years ago telling me, Dan, I'd love to sit with you. I've got this idea. Let's chat. We see each other, all of us, as people we can rely on.
Wow.
And so I feel very blessed of that. So we've created another level of community. And then there's another one I want to tell you about as well. So every Friday before the weekend, I generally have my chores. I go around doing all the shopping, and I go and buy fruit and veg from a very specific place. And I definitely drive past about 3 other places to this place. It's not because he's got the best fruit and veg, even though it's very, very good. It's because I go in there and I see the same people every week.
Yeah.
And it's the only place I see them. They're not friends, but they're like, and the owner, Sion is his name. Hey, Sion, how are you? And his son, Jonathan, behind the cashier. How are you? Do high five, whatever. And I feel connected to the level that I could be waiting in the queue and Sion will come and look at my cart. He'll take out my watermelon. Won't even say anything. He goes, not this one. And he goes and gets me a better one. I love that. And when we think about that sort of, mum and pup shop, which has obviously been disappearing for so long, it's such a shame.
Yeah.
That everything is faceless. And I love my Friday trips to Sion's.
That's such a perfect example. So you're going to live past 100, I think. You're on the right track.
I don't know if I want to. I drive everyone crazy, I think.
But I think that's part of, the epidemic of loneliness, that face-to-face connection, that presence, that like saying, hey, you drink this water and not the other. How's your son doing? What have you done this week? That you really don't get through technology and definitely not through text and through Instagram and all of that. And really, that's the disconnect that we're missing. And I think more and more having these pockets, these little, tribes that you keep creating around. Like you and I are now creating a tribe and a connection, or maybe Ride for Unity is a whole community that is coming together. So these are the kind of things that I think are preserving the connection and the happiness and the well-being that we all need. I mean, I don't see how human beings can survive without it.
I agree 100%.
So,
and you use the word tribe. I find that fascinating as well. I think tribalism is so critical, and yet some people would see that as a bit of a dirty word, as if, oh, you're creating a group that
like
is closed off, and then against other people. You know, in ancient times, tribes used to fight each other.
Right.
And whilst I get that statement, I still think that everyone wants to belong to a tribe.
Yeah.
And I think that in modern society, and unfortunately the world is showing us that it's not always true and often not true, tribes should still be able to exist. You should be able to belong to your tribe while respecting other tribes. And we see, unfortunately, that doesn't happen.
You know, that it's so connected with some of the things that Yuval Harari has talked about, you know, the historian,
Yes.
Yuval Harari, in which he talks about the evolution of how we have become social beings and what has happened now with artificial intelligence and technology. Our tribes used to be 100 people, 200 people, right?
Yeah.
Like 500 people that you knew about, that you were affected by, that you related to. Now our tribes are you, me, and the whole world when you open your phone.
Yeah.
And when you open your computer. So what happens on the other side of the world, I get affected by it. So right now, for example, I'm affected by Venezuela, by Israel, by the United States, by Ukraine, you know, like because of I'm seeing what happens all the time, everywhere with detail. So the level of anxiety and stress, really, and overstimulation of like, oh my God, what's going on? And it's so much that I'm not just worried about my tribe. I'm worried about the whole world and the way that we see the world. I mean, I hear the Gen Z generation, even the millennials say, wow, the world is so negative. There's so much bad and negative in the world. And, you know, where's the goodness, and why big corporations and leaders in the world want to do so much damage, and where's the hope in the world? And I say, I understand where they're coming from, because they're seeing this global phenomenons. But they're the day-to-day, saying hi to the farmer, to the person that is selling you the food, to the one that you're, you know, seeing every morning when you cross the street. It's not there so much anymore. Because even when you're crossing the street, you're looking at your phone. You're not even raising your face to say, hey, good morning. Even the elevator. I mean, that's something I do in the elevator. Everywhere I go in the elevators, I'm like, hi, bye, see you, hi. And people look at me like, what's she going to say? But at least to keep that connection going, right? And I think that's some of what's happening. And I think the you want to call it tribe, you want to call it community, you want to call it big family, call it whatever you want, but it's that sense of belonging.
It's the number one, for sure.
Yeah.
And you know, you've come from Venezuela. You've lived in New York, Miami. In fact, you're sort of between New York and Miami. So, where's your tribe?
I have a few different tribes right now, and I love that I have more than one tribe.
Yeah.
I have one around here that is watching us talk. That's one of my tribes.
Great tribe.
That I'm very grateful for. They're beautiful people. I'm very, very, very grateful for them. I have my happiness tribe. That's part of the World Happiness Foundation. We travel all over the world. It's a beautiful tribe also.
That's a tribe I want to get into.
Yeah, we are already. Hey, you're part of it already. We're next one in Dubai. We'll do the World Happiness in Dubai.
Let's do it. Sure, unless you're in Mexico, but it's another subject.
I have another tribe, which is my, I do the El Camino de Santiago, the walking.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yes. So it's with a group of people. Yeah, I think I've told you before that, I've done it from from France all the way to Santiago de Compostela. And then I did it from Portugal this year all the way to Santiago de Compostela. And then we get together and we're called peregrinos, pilgrimages. And actually a lot of them live here. And they're mostly from Venezuela, but from other parts too.
So that's the one thing that connects you all.
Yeah.
Apart from that, your lives are very, very different.
Yes,
That's the
very. But we connect with the pilgrimages. And we've done a lot of this walking around the world. We've done other places too. Like we just came back from Egypt also, with them. So that was nice.
What was your favorite place in Egypt, I can ask?
Aswan, no? Where you go? I went with the boat and I saw the huge
The temples that look so...
temple.
Yeah.
And I connected with the Nile. I couldn't believe that I was in the Nile, and that the papyrus, for me, the concept that the paper was created in Egypt in that way, and that we use paper to write, and somebody imagined those big plants that were growing up in the water, that from there we can make books. And I was like, I'm holding on to pieces of paper that I brought from Egypt that I loved. So, and then, of course, I have my tribe that are the Latino community here in the United States. I feel like I'm part of that tribe, and I completely advocate and defend the Latino immigrants in the U.S. And then I have my Jewish tribe, which I feel at home wherever I go, when there's my Jewish tribe people, and I'm so part of it too. So as you see, there's so many tribes, and I think all of us have, pieces like that we should, that we acknowledge and that we're
those are fortunate have plenty of tribes, that's for sure. And these are the keys to your contentment, to your happiness, and the meaningful life that you're leading. And we've talked about this before, that going back to trauma, which is obviously your expertise here, sometimes the greater the trauma, the greater the growth. It goes hand in hand. So you know what I'm going to ask you?
What?
What's your trauma?
That line of the greater trauma, greater growth, I told you today.
Did you?
Yes.
So you see it?
I did. Yes, so I'm glad that you're actually getting, you integrated already into your vocabulary. Yes, you're good. Excellent listener. Putting it on camera there. Excellent listener. But yes, I do believe that sometimes the people that you see out there in the world that are these amazing leaders, that are very connected, that are very aligned with their purpose, that have changed the world, is because they come from a place of so much pain and so much suffering that they've transformed their pain into purpose. They've transformed their breakdowns into the breakthroughs. Mm-hmm. They've done the wound into the medicine, and I'm obviously not the first one to say that, but I'm very curious to see how that change happened. And of course, because I've lived it myself, or I'm living it myself. So as I said before, I come from a place of a lot of suffering through my ancestors, Holocaust survivors, refugees of war, immigrants, discrimination, the rejection, a lot of changes, a lot of death, I think that I carry. And I feel like I carry not so much in my childhood, but I feel it in my DNA, that it's information that I've carried in my DNA, because even as close as my mom and my father, they've gone through a lot of difficulties. And, coming from Syria, my dad, coming from Romania, Transylvania, my mom, and like that, and in Israel, and, so in Venezuela, and so many places. So I feel like I've gathered a lot of information about suffering.
Right.
And I grew up in a community in Venezuela that was full of immigrants and refugees that tried to do the best that they could. And they did amazing in the community. They created a beautiful community, but it came out of suffering. And my question was like, how people do that? How people go through the worst of the worst and they can continue life and thrive.
Yes.
And that was always, I'm super curious. And of course, I applied it in my life. And yes, I've lived through discrimination and microaggressions and, maybe divorce even, and feeling as a different and an outlier in my own community many, many times. So these are all my micro traumas. And maybe some of them are bigger than others. But I think my biggest is the inheritance that I have from my intergenerational trauma, that I feel it. And I can tell you, I have dreamed about being at war, like about being persecuted, about escaping, and about running for my life. It's almost like I know what that feels like. And that's why I think talking about it is so powerful. And that's why, for example, the concept of epigenetics, which I love, is so powerful. And I talk about it all the time, which is like, we are not destined and we're not determined by the information in our genes, in our DNA. But now we know that the capacity that we have to change that information, to transform, to see what genes are expressed, depends on us and depends on the experiences that we have in our daily lives. So if I said, yes, I acknowledge and I recognize and I'm aware of the experiences that I've had in my life and my ancestors, but I'm also capable of changing the narrative, changing the story. And I'm the almost like the person in this cycle of trauma that is going to stop the cycle. I'm interrupting the cycle of trauma. It stops with me.
Wow.
And then I wanna leave a legacy of more happiness and pleasure, of more awareness and consciousness, of more expression of beauty in arts and music and, and dancing. And this is what I want to pass on to the next generations. And I think if we all do this, not just as individuals, but also as a collective, we can change the world. Because this doesn't just happen individually. That's one of the things I really emphasize and talk about. This is not me in my own world. This is me and you and you and me and all of the tribes that we talk about and the cultures that I come from. I come from very traumatized cultures. I mean, which one you want to choose? The Venezuelan, the Jewish, the Syrian, the Romanian, like these are traumatized cultures. So I'm not just changing myself as an individual. I want us to all talk about it as a culture and what we went through and the history that we went through and how we have to heal that trauma collectively in order to transform the world, to make a world a better place that is not based on traumatic experiences.
Amazing. Amazing. I just feel that with you and I find it fascinating that you feel that, and I imagine it's really driven by the stories from your grandparents and how you grew up through them, that you're living it in your own experience. I love the fact that you talk about your traumas through your DNA, and you've gone through all those stages of being aware of that and making a conscious decision to not be affected by it. Well, to be affected, be fully affected,
right,
in the most efficient and positive manner.
Exactly.
Which I think is amazing. I think most people, let's face it, the greatest initial impact that even the title of your book makes is that trauma doesn't have to be a negative thing. Because I think everyone immediately thinks about, well, trauma, the best I can do is get back to where I was before by accepting and overcoming my trauma.
Right. Which is valuable. And I call that, we call that resilient people or resilient cultures. And it's important to bounce back. It's important to say, hey, let me get back to where I was before. And I completely value that. But I say there's something more. You cannot just get back to where you were, but you can actually get better, thrive, grow even more, expand your life, expand your vision of the world.
I see it all around me. I mean, I'm so blessed through Ride for Unity to meet some of the most incredible people. And when I read your book, I was like, oh my God. I looked at all the incredible people. Some of them are Paralympians, some of them are just incredible business leaders. They're all unbelievable. And I think there's one thing they've all got in common. They've all been through very clear trauma, whether it's been, I agree with you that I think we've all been through certain levels of trauma, but with them,
yes,
it's marked.
Yes.
It's either loss of a parent at a very early age, or both parents, or a sibling, or a spouse, and that's just on the loss side. Or paralysis,
right?
Instant paralysis.
Accidents, right?
And they've all got that in common. And I was like, wow, there's something here. There really is. And it really made things clear for me when I even just read the title of your book.
Yeah, and those are beautiful examples of post-traumatic growth. These are amazing examples. I mean, maybe at some other point we're going to talk to them and see how they go through the stages of post-traumatic growth and how they are incredible illustrations of how you take that pain, how you take that suffering, and you really transform it into the greatest and biggest thing for yourself and for others.
And I love the lexicon here, post-traumatic growth, because everyone talks about mental resilience. And you use the word resilience to be dealing with.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And I love that because that everyone's like, oh, mental resilience, and they have mental resilience coaching, etc., etc. And now I feel that's limiting.
Yeah.
It's not enough. Let's think about growth.
Yes.
And, we've got an event coming up in the UAE, and we called it the Road to Resilience. I would have called it the Road to Growth. I would have changed the name now because of
the next one.
fine. Absolutely. Because, everyone, the whole world there's a big movement of talking about mental health. Everyone's talking about mental health. That's a whole other discussion, is like when people are using mental health as an excuse, as a crutch, instead of taking responsibility. We can talk about that as well. And then people say, well, the cure is resilience. You've got to be resilient. So we're going to give you resilience training. Hell, I want to give them growth training. I want them to learn to leverage it, not to try and sweep their issues under the carpet so that they can get over it. I mean, we talk about endurance athletes. So I meet a lot of endurance athletes. I'm just an amateur happy cyclist. I don't really, I haven't got the ability to do any major Ironman or anything like that. I don't think I have it. Maybe I haven't gone through enough trauma to actually do something like that. Who knows? But when I see some endurance athletes, I see some that I feel, not that I'm an expert, that's growth right there. And there's some that I feel that it's not growth. They're just running away. They're using endurance sport as an escape from whatever issues they have to deal with, and they're not dealing with it. So they have to get up and run a marathon. They have to get up and do an Ironman. Because otherwise they're going to have to deal with their issues. Is that something you say?
True. Yeah, and I think one of the things that our bodies does is that it uses adrenaline as a way of like keeping moving, especially in extreme sports like that. I mean, Ironman is extreme.
Oh yeah,
I think
it's insane.
It's insane. I don't know how people do it. It's incredible, but it secretes a lot of adrenaline and a lot of like stimulation in the body, and some people become addicted to that, and it creates addiction. And it says, okay, now my life is so boring. I don't have those levels of excitement. I need more, and I need more, and I need more. And now one Ironman is not enough. I have to do 2. I have to do 3. So yes, I see some of that addictive behavior in whatever it is that we do. I mean, we all have addictions. I think I told you my addiction is chocolate. One of my addictions is chocolate. And yeah, it's like, I'm sure I rather do chocolate than other things. So that's I think, a good addiction to have. And it's a good addiction to have sports. But it's also true that addiction is a way of masking the pain that you don't want to deal with. And we use addictions to numb, to paralyze, to dissociate, and to disconnect from something that is uncomfortable and that bothers us. Because sometimes it's our family waiting for us at home, or the relationship you don't want to deal with, or the work, or your own identity saying, I'd rather be running and swimming than looking at myself and saying, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
It's also true that for some people, like you said, it's such an amazing challenge to say, wow, if I can accomplish this from where I come from, I've grown. So it's a fine line. Everybody has their own purpose and intention of why they want to do it.
And maybe at some stage, you don't want to overthink it. Like,
yeah.
If we're out and if we feel that contentment inside, let's not overthink it.
Right. I think, having sports in life is amazing, and moving your body in any way that you want, in sports or in dancing or in jumping and playing, it's so important. It's really one of the foundations of really well-being and happiness. So
you're preaching to the choir. My whole life has been around sports. I really haven't focused much on anything else. 25 years career has been in the sports industry, and I always used to play sports from a very early age. I don't know what I'd do without sports. It's just a huge part of my life. It always has been.
So for you, that mind-body connection is so clear.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And the lessons from sport as well. Dealing with stuff. You have to deal with stuff out on the sports field. And there's a big difference between individual sports, like tennis.
I was going to ask you, yes.
So I've always been a team sports player. I love team sports. That camaraderie, that getting over stuff together, and at school, you're going on the bus to an away game together, and there's something hugely enriching about it. I was never into individual sports, whereas my son, for example, played tennis for 5 years and really excelled. And I used to watch him out on the court. He's alone. And that's a different coping mechanism that you need. And tennis in particular is psychologically one of the toughest sports. It's no wonder that some of the best players they have that mental capability.
Yeah.
Almost more importantly than the physical.
Yes.
Roger Federer.
At some point,
Nadal,
exactly.
These people are just and you see them all of a sudden, you get into that loop of net, or whatever. You've got to deal with that and move on. All the tennis players talk about it on your own.
Yes, on your own. And you're your worst enemy, right? Your head is your worst enemy. I think the sports that is in teams, it's such a beautiful example of learning how to deal with each other, how to collaborate instead of competing, how to learn to balance out your needs with the other person's needs, how to help the other to also get to where they need to get. I love it. I love using examples of sports in real life and or in other parts of life and say, look, how a team gets together, how there's coaching about it, how, in basketball or in soccer and football, no? You do this and then you say, you apply that to life, to your other parts of life and say, how are you as a family? How you're functioning, who's doing what roles are you playing, who's taking what role, how are you letting the other one win or score the goal or do what, right? And
absolutely,
it's incredible. And how you recover from a loss.
That's right. And how you interact between each other when the chips are down.
Right.
Do you go off at each other, or do you get, who is the guy who bonds, or the girl who bonds everyone together?
Everyone, and you keep going, right? Yeah.
It's huge lessons from sport.
I love that you've chosen sports as a way of understanding life.
I don't think I chose it. I think sport chose me.
Early in life.
Oh, very much so.
Like, do you remember when that started? How
you connected with sport?
How you connected with sports?
I think through my dad. He always loved sport. He used to play when he was at school, but not to a very high level, and he used to watch sport. So, in the house, there was always sports on, and then I used to get interested through him. My dad was my idol, like many young boys. Our fathers are these amazing people until we get to about 15 and 16 and realize that they're not perfect.
And what sports was he playing?
Football, soccer for our American friends, and cricket were his two favorites. And those were two sports that I excelled in. And hockey was the other, but not ice hockey, field hockey. And I just played sports all the time. I played those three sports for the school. I played cricket to a fairly decent level. It's funny, I will mention this, it's not connected to the other parts of the conversation, but it's an interesting mental challenge that we all have. When you're an amateur sportsman at a young age, and we all live this illusion that we can play for our country or whatever.
Of course, yeah.
I still think I'm going to play for England one day, but anyway.
Witness.
And we all, and I talk about this with other amateur sportsmen, we all have that moment when we realize that it's not going to happen. And the gap between an amateur sportsman and a professional sportsman, even a good amateur or semi-professional, in cricket I was maybe getting close to that, but like to a professional level, I mean, it's enormous. And the gap, I think, comes down to not raw ability or raw talent at all. It comes down to just focusing your life on it.
Right.
That's it.
Making it a priority.
That's it.
Yes.
And you just focus on that day in, day out.
Yeah.
And those incremental changes over time, then when you take a step back, you zone out, you see, oh my God.
Right.
I mean, the moment that it happened for me in cricket, because I was okay at football, I was okay at hockey, but I wasn't that level. At cricket, I was good. And the moment it happened with me at cricket, I remember coming in, facing this team who were wiping us out. And we were normally the best team in the county, but this team came in and just wiped us out. And I was the last batsman to face. And the sun was going down, I remember it. And this fast bowler was coming in. I was just like standing there, like feeling like a little kid. I was a little kid. I think I was 17 or 18. I swear I didn't see the ball. I just heard it hit the gloves of the wicketkeeper behind me. I was like, has he bowled yet? That was insane. Insane. And I was out the very next ball. And I realized then that the level is just so different. I had been practicing, 3-4 times a week for years. And I was like, oh my God, not a chance. The difference is enormous. And I knew that I wasn't going to give my life to it. I didn't want it that much or whatever. I don't know if I would have had a chance at professional, even if I had done that. I don't know. The success rate is so tiny. But I know from interviewing a lot of other people and speaking to a lot of people and hearing interviews of professional athletes, it's all about the dedication.
That's interesting. That moment for you was a fork in the road.
Yes.
Because you said, okay, I either continue and push it and be disciplined and focused to become the professional cricket player, or I know I'm not going to go that way and then I'm going to focus on something else.
I think it was an easy fork because it's not like I was was one of the masses that have this dream, but I don't think I was nearly serious enough about it. So I don't think it was like, oh my God, here I've got to make a decision. I think it was like, okay, I get it. This is the path, and I'm going to continue on it, and that's it. And I've just enjoyed sports as a happy amateur.
It sounds like it's a moment of maturity. Also, it's like becoming a more of an adult from being 17, 18 to saying, okay.
I don't use dirty words with me. I don't think I'm an adult yet, even today. But you're an adult.
It's like, okay, I am an adult, and I know my focus is going to be something there, and I'm not going to be playing for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
In some way, it's a loss. It's like a little bit of a loss of an identity or a part of you that says, I'm no longer. I'm going to be a cricket player, a professional cricket player.
I think so. I think so. And a very good friend of mine is an ex-professional cricket player, and it's unbelievable when you play racket sports with him or anything. The golf, and he's been retired for 20 years. It doesn't matter. The golf is just enormous. He ran me around a squash court about 2 years ago. I said, can you take it easy on me? He goes, I am taking it easy. I was so embarrassed because it's just so different.
But I think, the understanding of sports that you have and the experience of sports, living it and seeing it, has informed your business and has informed the way that you relate to people, the way that you do business, the way that you choose your players. I think we were talking about that before, maybe like an incredible talent that we learned from our experiences of early on in life, that sometimes are painful experiences. Maybe, you lost that opportunity maybe to be a professional, but learning how to choose your players, who's going to be in your team so your team can win, right? It's an amazing talent that you have.
Well, I mean, I've got lucky. I don't know.
I don't think so. I'm saying it's a talent.
I'll take it.
Yes, but look where it's coming from. It's coming from like those early experiences of knowing.
I think so.
Knowing how to create a winning team.
I think so, and I think that being in my place, we talk about the word privilege, working in the sports industry for 25 years. I mean, what a piece of privilege. It's just unbelievable to be able to, and not every day is glorious, of course not. I can't stand looking at the finance side and the banking, and it's important and I'm an investor now, so I have to look at due diligence and all this. It's like, that doesn't drive me, that's for sure. But I'm in an industry that I'm passionate about. And that makes me luckier than 95% of the population.
And I think Ride for Unity is a beautiful combination of the sports part with the intention of doing something good in the world. It's like saying, right? Like having more unity, more connection, more tolerance, less division. And you put biking in there because you can't work without the sports.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, the sports element is critical because when we talk about belonging, for me, it's critical in Ride for Unity to bring a lot of very different people together. And so, okay, well, hang on. What's the anchor? We need to find an anchor. There's no point putting a lot of very, very different people in the room and go, hey, get on. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So the anchor is sports.
Right.
And then once you're anchored and you've got that in common, so we've got the Ride Unity Tribe. Talks about
exactly.
of which you are now a proud member. And so
after this morning.
Yeah, exactly.
You remember my biking track.
That's right. You're in. You're accepted. And so we've got that thing that we can now talk about, that cycle we went on and how did it feel, etc., etc. And then it opens the door once you've got that anchor, and it has to chronologically work that way. Yeah. Once you've got the anchor first, then you're open to go, oh, wow, you're from Lebanon, for example. Talk to me, and it doesn't have to be so contrived, but that's what happens. When you first have just a difference, then that's all you see is the difference. And then there's that gap, and it's like difficult to bridge. So use an anchor. So that was the trick with Ride for Unity.
Right.
And it's amazing. It's amazing. Like the people who have ridden together, it's like they're now friends in their own right, all part of that tribe. And it's a wonderful thing.
That's a great way of healing the world, and I think arts, which, I've mentioned also before, it's another way of finding commonalities.
Yeah.
And languages that are not necessarily the verbal language, but it's using the body and using another part of our brain that is not the more rational or logical, but it's more like expressions of beauty, of creativity, of imagination, of co-creating maybe a piece of art, a piece of music, a piece of dance. and then through that communicating with each other, you know. So
I love the fact you say it's that emotional and not necessarily logical part. Because when we think about the connection that technology has given us, it's all through extra data and extra information. So we've got so many data points all around us. So we go, I can connect with you on this. I'm now part of an online community. And it's not without use. It has its utility. But it's all about logical data connections, which is why social media pushes us things that we want. And inadvertently or advertently cocoons us in our own echo chambers of stuff that we all just validates our own thoughts, which is the danger. It doesn't allow us to grow with different things. And so we need that in-person connection to have the emotional side of it, which is at best diluted and at worst non-existent through digital media.
Oh.
What do? We cycle together.
We cycle together.
And so here's a question for you. Do you think cycling is a team sport or an individual sport?
It can be both. You can cycle by yourself or you can do teams. It
can be.
It can be a very flexible sport in that way, no?
From my point of view, cycling, team sport, individual sport. And I'm saying it as someone who cycles always on his own just because I have no routines. I always just go out on my bike. I don't feel I can commit to a team. I think that cycling is a team sport. I've come to that conclusion, even though I cycle on my own. And the reason is, and this is why I love Ride for Unity. Obviously, I love it. I'm completely biased. But when we cycle, and people sometimes say, oh, but, you know, you've got like amazing cyclists. No. The team is a group of, some of them are triathletes, like incredible, very good cyclists, through to intermediate amateur cyclists like myself, all the way down to people who just know how to cycle.
Me.
Yeah, absolutely. Last year when we cycled around the Emirates, I remember Lee Bowman-Purse, she's an amazing woman. She has a charity in the UK that bridges the gap for underprivileged women and girls. She does incredible work. And she's also a life coach. She's a wonderful person and a hugely entertaining, amusing lady. I love her. And so she was on the team. And she was on the team because she was giving a workshop at one of the cultural centers, and I wanted her to be there for her persona. And so she says, Daniel, am I cycling? I was like, yeah, sure, try. You know, why not? And she really loved getting the kit and getting here. She was like, I've never cycled more than 5 kilometers in my life. So I said, give it a go. We'll see what happens. Okay. The first day she cycled 60 kilometers by 2 p.m.
What?
She was over the moon. She said, Daniel, that was one of the best days of my life.
Wow.
And I realized at that moment that I'm actually, with this organization, I'm giving these people, and she's an amazing person, but this was breaking her barriers in a completely different area.
Wow.
And we cycle as a team. It's what's called like a no-drop ride. You know, it doesn't matter if you're, we cycle at a reasonable pace, slow pace, so that we are all together in a symbol of unity. It's not, some people say, oh, when's the race? Oh, the race. We're cycling together to engage between ourselves, show that and exemplify that to communities that we then engage with, and hopefully leave a legacy of unity for everyone there.
That is so beautiful. That reminds me, I actually have an experience of that when I went to the Loire Valley and I cycled. I did all of the Loire on a bike, and it was a group of people, and we were going from town to town for like a week. And I said, I'm going to travel like that from now on. Like, this is the way to travel the world.
Yeah.
It's on a bike with a group of people sharing experiences from place to place until you say, hi here, hi there. You talk to each other on the road. You eat a little bit of bread and cheese. You continue to the next town. Really amazing experience.
When was that?
That was 20 years ago.
And have you done that? Or did you say, I'm going to do this?
No, I've walked.
Oh, that's true.
Okay,
I mean,
and walk,
yes.
which is also another way of like doing it together, because you walk with many people and you meet people from all parts of the world and you start conversations and then you continue. So you can say also that walking or run, you know, like jogging or running, it can be a team sport if you do it with other people and have like a...
And I think that it just upgrades everything. You know, once you're a part of a team, you know, that we talk about it, we slay the digital world in this conversation. I would like to also say, give kudos.
Yes.
So there's an app called Strava.
Oh.
Do you know Strava?
No.
So anyone who runs a lot or cycles a lot, or, you know, is on Strava a lot. And Strava is a place to log your data. So you log your data, but it's a community app. Your basically posting. It has become a very, so people can actually comment, oh, nice run there. They give you, it's a very positive. In fact, I saw a funny comment recently. It was a meme on Instagram, I think. It was like, your perfect woman isn't on Tinder, she's on Strava. I loved that because it was like, don't look for just the external, superficial things. Look for someone you have a connection with.
Right.
And so,
That's something,
if you're a single man, you might well connect with a single woman who likes cycling, and you can go out cycling together, And I love that. Maybe like
that goes beyond the appearance and more about the experience that you can share together.
Exactly. And that's probably got more longevity in partnerships if you're sharing shared experience, So I love that. So
nice.
It's an amazing community of people all over the world. And then, for example, when I came here to Miami, I immediately looked on Strava, what are recommended bike routes? And you can see who's done them, who's got the top score or the fastest ride. You can see all these stuff. And it's engaging. And so you talk about a tribe, Strava's a tribe. And it's purely digital. And you know what? Kudos to Strava for doing something very amazing.
No, I do want to also say, of course, all the positive sides. I mean, some of, for example, communities that are like elderly people that are not able to mobilize themselves, but they use Facebook to connect with friends all over the world, and they stay connected with friends and families, which is in other occasions it would have not have happened, ever, that they would have been able to connect like that. So, no, of course, and we get a lot of good information as well. So everything in balance. I just think that the pendulum is too much on one extreme right now, and we need to bring it back to the middle.
Agree.
And I think we're making effort into doing that. That's one of the things that I want to do for next year, actually.
So talk to me about 2025. What does it have in store for you?
Yeah, so very proud of the books that have come out, not just in English and in Spanish, but also in 10 languages now. And I can't wait to go to all these different countries and present the book in Korean, in Dutch, in Polish, very amazing. Hopefully.
I told you that I still haven't finished your book, which is crazy. I'm sitting here talking to you and I still haven't finished it. Why have I not finished your book? Because my colleague, who got her hands on it before me, hasn't given it to me. So I had to buy another copy, which only came last week. So
you have to buy that, and for the whole community, all of your tribes.
All of my tribes. Sign me up.
Yes, but I think part of it is like really acknowledging all this, all these books that have a life of their own. At some point you write a book and you give it to the world, and then it has a life of its own, and it goes places, and then people coming from different parts of the world, like somebody coming from the Library of Alexandria in Egypt saying, wow, your book is here.
Amazing.
Somebody called me from the library in Brooklyn and say, I found your book and I know you through that. Or somebody calls me from like Spain and said, hey, your book is here. Love that, because it makes me to connect with people that I'm not even there, and these are people that are connecting with me through the book. So more, the more networking I can do like that, the better. The more creating community like that, the better. I think we're gonna do. We're working on a workbook that is coming out soon. That it's allowing people to actually put it into practice. Everything that we talk about post-traumatic growth, and making it into exercises and journals that you can really go through your own process of healing as you're writing it and doing the exercises and understanding it better. So I can't wait for that to come out too.
Amazing.
And you'll see it. As soon as it comes out, you'll get one. And we're also working on giving conferences in other parts. We're doing the World Happiness Fest in March here in Miami. We're doing the conference in Romania, and we're talking about post-traumatic growth in Romania at the end of next year. We might do a podcast that has come out. So, so there are different.
I mean, I'd love to find a way to, because there are so many overlapping messages between Ride for Unity and everything you talk about. And I think we've got a lot to learn from. I've already learned a lot from everything I've read and heard from you, even before this conversation. I'd love to think about maybe trying to create legacy programs to support your work in any way. And I'd love to think about that together, because I think that raising awareness to something is step one. Actually creating a legacy program that goes beyond just ourselves, that there will be another hub that is taking your work on.
That would be amazing.
Um,
I think one of the ways to do it, since you're mentioning that, and maybe for us to explore later, is through education. I think the educational systems in different parts of the world, including the United States, hasn't caught up with where we are as human beings and with technology, and also with the level of collective traumas that we've gone through. So incorporating this language into the curriculum of schools, like for young kids, to know that post-traumatic growth is an option, into the universities in which okay, you have ancestral trauma, you have childhood trauma. What do we do with that? That can be part of the learning curricula, that you say, this is what I have, this is part of who I am, and what do I do with this? How do I heal? How do I transform? Where do we have the language for it? So that would be, by the way, an amazing project for next year that we've talked about, and that one of my visions is to have the language of post-traumatic growth to be part of that, what we use when we talk about trauma and healing.
I think it's part of the human journey right at its core. And I think that you could not only support, you can save a lot of people and children if it's in this.
Absolutely. People have told me, and even yesterday when we were with a soldier from Israel coming from October 7th, that, we got introduced to say, I think that thinking about trauma, if I only think about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, it's like doomed. It's like, that's it. There's nothing to do. But when you reframe it and you use that concept that, that we were talking about and say, oh, this is growth, it really gave me hope. And that light of hope is a gift that I really, one of my intentions and one of my purposes and our purposes is to bring that light into the world, to say there's hope, and there's hope even in the worst of circumstances. With help, with support, with community, we can change it. We can transform it.
I honestly want to tell you that you are one of the best lights of hope that I've met in recent times. And I wish you incredible success in all this significant journey in not only helping people grow, but saving them and understanding how they can become better people and their best selves. Dr. Edith Shiro, this has been an absolute honor and a pleasure.
Thank you. I think we connect because I think you're doing similar work, and we see those lights of hope, and then creating a connection community like that. So thank you so much. Thank you for being in Miami and this part of the world. And then next time we're going to meet in another part of the world. So I can't wait.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Best of luck with all your work.
Thank you.
Yeah.